I don't know how long I sat there after he left, staring at the empty space where he'd been standing. The shock had cemented me in place, my heart pounding as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. The air in my apartment felt thicker, as though that one word had seeped into the walls, settling over every memory and moment we'd built here together. Whore. A word with such venom, one that couldn't be softened or easily explained away. A word that dug deep and planted seeds of doubt in the cracks of my mind, even after he was gone. I replayed the moment over and over, but no amount of repetition softened the blow. We hadn't even been arguing about anything significant, just some silly remark, something I couldn't even remember. But something in him had shifted, turned dark and cutting. His face had hardened, and in that split second, it was as though he had become someone else, a stranger standing in my living room, staring at me with contempt. I could still see his narrowed eyes, his clenched jaw, the look on his face when he uttered that word. It was a look that told me he meant it, that he believed it, and in that moment, I felt as though I were shrinking, my entire sense of self unraveling in the face of his disdain. After he left, I sat alone, feeling like a ghost in my own home. My sanctuary had turned against me, the furniture, walls, and decor bearing silent witness to my shame. Every detail in the apartment seemed tainted, every object a reminder of the life we had shared here, a life I had believed was built on love, respect, and trust. But now, it was as though the foundation of everything I thought we had was crumbling beneath me. The memory of his words echoed through the space, bouncing off the walls and settling deep inside me, wrapping itself around my heart and refusing to let go. In the days that followed, my thoughts became a never-ending cycle of questions and regrets. How had we come to this? Had I missed signs along the way, little hints that might have warned me of what was lurking beneath the surface? I found myself poring over our past conversations, sifting through memories, looking for anything that might explain his words. But all I could find were fragments of laughter, shared glances, moments of tenderness that now felt like cruel illusions. It was as though I were trying to rewrite the past, searching for a truth that would somehow soften the reality of what he had said. But there was no relief, only a gnawing ache that refused to fade. My mind became a battlefield, a constant struggle between the part of me that wanted to hold on and the part that knew I had to let go. I thought about reaching out to him, desperate for some kind of explanation, some way to make sense of his words. But every time I considered it, a wave of anger and hurt washed over me, reminding me of the gravity of what he had said. How could I ever forgive him for reducing me to that one hateful word? How could I ever look at him the same way, knowing he was capable of seeing me like that? I confided in Sarah, seeking comfort in her outrage. She listened as I poured out my confusion and pain, her face a mix of sympathy and anger. She assured me that I deserved better, that no one had the right to reduce me to a single word, especially not someone who claimed to love me. Her words offered a momentary relief, a brief reprieve from the weight of my doubts. But they didn't reach the core of my hurt, the place where his words had lodged themselves like splinters, impossible to remove. At night, when the silence became overwhelming, I found myself replaying the memory again, unable to escape the way it made me feel, the way it twisted my sense of self. Each day felt like a struggle, a battle to hold on to the parts of me that hadn't been touched by his words. I forced myself to go through the motions, to keep moving, but everything felt muted, as though I were living behind a layer of glass. I couldn't escape the feeling that something essential had been broken inside me, something that couldn't be repaired. And yet, despite the pain, I found myself clinging to the hope that there was some way to make things right, some way to restore what had been lost. But deep down, I knew that things could never go back to the way they were, that the damage had been done, and there was no undoing it. Eventually, I realized that I needed to confront him, not for him, but for myself. I needed answers, a way to make sense of the pain he had caused, even if those answers wouldn't bring me any peace. I needed to face him, to look him in the eyes and ask him why he had chosen to hurt me in the way he had. And so, with a heavy heart, I arranged to meet him, steeling myself for whatever would come. When I saw him again, my emotions churned inside me, a mixture of love, anger, and betrayal. He looked the same, yet different, a stranger wearing the face of the man I had once loved. I felt a strange sense of detachment as I sat across from him, as though I were watching someone else live out this moment, someone else bear the weight of his betrayal. I asked him the questions that had been haunting me, voicing the doubts and fears that had plagued me since that night. I listened to his apologies, his explanations, his promises that he hadn't meant it, that he had just been angry. But his words felt hollow, empty, unable to erase the pain he had caused. And as I looked into his eyes, I realized that no amount of apology could make up for the way he had made me feel. Walking away from him felt like closing a door on a part of myself, a part that had believed in love, in trust, in the possibility of a future together. It was a bittersweet relief, a release from the pain, but also a reminder of the loss, of the dreams that would never come to be. I left with a heavy heart, but also a sense of clarity, a knowledge that I couldn't keep holding on to someone who had hurt me in such a profound way. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing, on finding a way to rebuild the parts of myself that had been broken. I spent time with friends, surrounded myself with people who reminded me of my worth, who helped me see myself in a new light. I took long walks, spent hours in quiet reflection, allowing myself to grieve the loss of the relationship, the loss of the man I had thought I loved. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to reclaim myself, to rebuild the foundation of who I was, independent of his words, his anger, his betrayal. Looking back, I can see that his words had given me a gift, a painful, brutal gift, but a gift nonetheless. They had forced me to confront the truth, to see the cracks in our relationship, the places where I had compromised too much of myself. They had shown me the importance of self-respect, of knowing my worth, of refusing to let anyone define me with their words or their anger. And in the end, I emerged stronger, more resilient, more sure of who I was and what I deserved. The pain of his words still lingers, a faint ache that reminds me of what I went through, but it no longer defines me. It no longer has the power to control me or to make me doubt my worth. I have found my way back to myself, back to a place of strength and self-love, and in that place I have found peace.